Well, good morning and welcome to Spotlight Hawaii. Happy Aloha Friday. I'm Yanji Denise, joined by Ryan Kalei-Suji. And Ryan, it's really been a week of so much change on the national level. Of course, we welcomed a new president at the state level. We had the opening of the legislature and also some changes for our city government. And that's what we're going to be talking about today.
That's why we're going to be focusing in on what's happening over at Honolulu Hale. And joining us this morning is the newly named Council Chair, Tommy Waters. Good morning, Council Chair. Thank you so much for joining us. Want to start off this morning, if you can give us an outline of what sort of changes have happened on the council with this latest election. We have a number of new lawmakers that have been elected into the office. Can you give us a rundown of their roles and how things are going thus far?
Absolutely, and good morning to you both, and good morning to Honolulu and Hawaii. So happy to join you. Yes, I'm very excited to announce our new leadership lineup. As you know, I'm humbled and honored to be elected by my peers as the new council chair. Esther Kia'aina from Windward Side is going to be the vice chair. She's also going to chair the Committee on Housing and the Economy. Andrea Tupola from the west side is going to be the floor leader. And we have Calvin Say as our budget chair, Brandon Elefante as the planning and zoning chair, Radiant Cordero as our transportation chair, Augie Tolba as our parks chair, Heidi Suniyoshi as public safety chair, which I chaired last term, and I'm handing over the reins to her. And Carol Fukunaga will continue to be the Public Infrastructure and Technology Chair. And real interesting about our team is that the leadership of the entire council for the first time ever has a majority of women, majority female, which is really, really special. And I'd like to point out that our leadership team of Kia'aina, Tupola, and myself are reflect actually the makeup of the council. Another interesting thing is the three of us, we actually went to Kamehameha schools. And that wasn't done on purpose, but it just happened to work out that way. And four of us on the council are actually Native Hawaiian. So it's a really wonderful team, and I'm so proud to be the chair at this time.
A wonderful team and facing some tremendous challenges. What do you see as sort of the mandate for this year? You know, we're facing so much as a state when it comes to the economy, when it comes to public health. What are the council's priorities that you're going to be putting front and center?
Well, the budget is the absolute priority. In November, the budget and fiscal services director explained to the council that we have a $400 million deficit. $400 million. Now that's not insignificant. That's going to be our number one challenge. How are we going to fill the budget? Because you know that in county government, police, fire, ambulance, your garbage, your sewers, your roads, these are all very, very important things that we need every day. And I can't see cutting any of those things. So we got to figure out how we're going to do it. Do more with less. And Calvin Say, as our budget chair, is the perfect person to do it. You know, if you may recall, he was the finance director or finance chair at the legislature for about a decade before he became the speaker. So he's uniquely qualified to be our budget chair.
You know, let's stick on that topic of the budget for a little bit. Aside from just not raising taxes, whether it be property taxes or any form of taxes, what other means is there to sort of make up that significant amount of money? Would that potentially be taxing up maybe certain industries and not people? Would it be, you know, you mentioned maybe cutting services. Would it be furloughs that we're seeing that has been proposed on the state level? What are some of the considerations that you think could be used to make up such a deficit of that magnitude?
Oh, great question. There's a number of things that I'm looking at now. One of them is simply refinancing all of our bonds. Right now, the bonds are at a record low. I think it's like 2%, you know? So if you it's like a loan that you take out on your home or your car. If you refinance it, you can save money. So that's one real big thing that we can do. And the last administration, they actually started saving money from the get-go. So there's overlap, or there's money that's still left over from last year that we can carry over to this year. So that's another big thing. Vacant positions is another thing that we have to look at. We fund positions every single year, I think to the tune of maybe $29 million that sometimes we just, for whatever reason, can't fill them. Well, that's savings that we can look at. I don't, I'm born and raised here. I'm the fifth of six kids, and I'm the only one who lives here because my siblings can't afford to live here. And my parents moved to the mainland. My dad, born and raised in Kalihi, he moved to the mainland, ended up dying on the mainland, living with one of my brothers. But he couldn't live here anymore. So the way I look at it is we cannot raise taxes. We cannot, further burden our local people because they're burdened enough. Just getting creative and finding how to do more with less. That's going to be my job, and that's what I've tasked our committee chairs to do. Roll up your sleeves, work hard, and let's figure this out. And by the way, can I just say this? It's key. I know you talked about what's happening on the national level, and finger pointing, blame, and excuses never resulted in amazing new future for legislation, right? We got to work together. We as council members need to work together with each other. We need to work with our new mayor. We need to work with the new directors, and the council needs to work with the legislature too, right? We're all in this together. And again, we cannot blame each other. We got to work together. We're utilizing local values too, right? And I know I'm talking too much, and I apologize. I just get really excited when we talk about Hawaii and our home. But,
Well,
but go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, please.
I'm just saying that every why do we do this, right? Why do politicians do this job? It's because we love our home, right? We love our keikis, we love our kupuna, and we love our families. And that's what we're doing it for, right? We're protecting each other, right? And utilizing local values of alohaing everybody every day, all your might, right? In any decision that we make, whether it be the budget, housing, homelessness, if we treat each other with aloha every day, think about how our decisions affect our keiki, our kupuna, and our families, right? If you think about that and channel every single decision that we make through that lens, I don't think we can go wrong, right? I'm optimistic despite all the challenges that we have, because looking at our team on the council, I believe we all share the local values that we got from our parents, our grandparents, our teachers, our coaches, right? We all were born and raised here in Hawaii, which is cool. Like I said, we got 4 Native Hawaiians on the council. And again, if we treat everybody with aloha and when we make these tough decisions, I think we'll come out of this okay.
Well, one of the tough decisions is really this tension between public health and business. Of course, if more businesses open up, that opens the door to more tax revenue, which would help to fill that deficit. But there is the concerns about the spread of the coronavirus in our community. What are your thoughts on Mayor Kirk Caldwell's tier system and if that should be kept going into this new administration?
Part of the problem, as I saw it, was that these emergency proclamations were coming out every week, sometimes twice a week, and people just didn't understand them. Remember, our parks were closed and people were getting cited for misdemeanor charges. Part of that was because they didn't know what was going on, what was happening, what was the rules, what was the emergency proclamation, where do you find that? So the tier system actually served a very, very valuable purpose, and we tried to get it out as much as possible to people so that they could understand what they could and couldn't do. There still is a problem. People still don't know how to access this. Some people don't have a computer, right? But it's super easy to follow. Now, having said that, I think we can adjust it a little bit, of course, because it's vitally important to keep our small businesses working, right? I'm a big advocate for small businesses. When we talk about diversifying our economy, right? My friend from the Big Island pointed out when he spoke in front of the Big Island Council, diversifying economy just means supporting our local businesses. Don't shop Amazon. I know it's convenient and you like to do it, but shop at our local businesses. Can I also just say this? It's important. I think we dropped the ball in the last tranche of money that came from the federal government. We spent a lot of money at HPD and vehicles, including paddy wagons and riot training. To me, that was a waste of money. Of course, it's nice to have, but why weren't we spending more of that money on testing and tracing? Why not the city finally bought the testing machines, and we have them at the airport, and anybody can go down there and utilize them. But make this free. Have these testing machines out there all over the place. We could be testing our teachers twice a week, testing our students twice a week, right? Testing our sports coaches and athletes twice a week, just to ensure that they're safe and make it free. I'm really hoping that our governor and our new mayor take that into consideration going forward, because if you know that you're healthy and you know you don't have the virus, you can be more confident when you go out to your businesses and restaurants. So I know that's a long explanation for a very simple question, but this is a complicated issue.
Speaking of the new mayor, have you had an opportunity to speak with Mayor Blangiardi, and could you describe some of the conversations that you maybe have had already? And what are the things that you're looking for him? I know you mentioned just up into in your last response about more money and funding going towards COVID testing, but what other things are you looking for him to provide and to support the council with?
So I have an official meeting with him next week and the managing director of Forum B, and I'm really looking forward to having that official meeting. But we've talked unofficially many times. I called him to congratulate him on winning his election, and he was very gracious. And I invited him to come and speak at our inauguration, and he invited me to speak at his inauguration. And in a sense, we made a pact that we got to work together, right? I've always said we can agree, we can disagree, we can agree to disagree, but let's not be disagreeable, because ultimately, and I got the feeling from him that his heart is in this and my heart is in this, and we're going to work together to solve these problems. And I think he agrees with me that the budget is the #1 priority. And then right after that, we got to figure out homelessness and affordability and keep our local residents right here in Hawaii instead of moving to the mainland.
Well, you mentioned homelessness, and that, of course, is one of the things that the council has been working to tackle for quite some time now. The new mayor has said that he differs with the previous administration on wanting to get rid of doing these sweeps. What is your thoughts on that, and what could be done differently to help address this issue, especially as we see people having so many financial struggles right now?
I tend to agree with him. I think the sweeps are just cruel, actually. The sit and lie bill does not work. What happened was, I think there was a concentration of homeless folks in 1 or 2 areas. And since the sweeps have happened, they've dispersed. And now we're seeing it all over the island. In my district in Diamond Head, you probably have about 500 people living Mauka and Makai of Diamond Head Road. 500 people. People who are going surfing and they see the homeless guys washing their bucket of kukai as you're paddling out surfing. It's just not cool. At the same time, though, they cannot be living on the beach. Just that's not acceptable. It's not safe, and it's cruel. So what we need to do is build places for people to live, right? I haven't talked to the mayor about this yet, but I intend to next week. But we must start building places for people to live, because they cannot live on our beaches and parks as they are on our roads. It's not safe for them. It's not safe for everyone else. And again, it's just cruel. We must start thinking about that. And hopefully we get a little help from our federal government. One of the things I also think we dropped the ball on, we could have relaxed the building codes through the emergency proclamation in order to build small homes for people to live in. Remember on the Big Island when Fissure 8 erupted and those folks were displaced from their homes? Through emergency proclamation, they're able to put aside the building codes in order to just get together, and the community came together and built these homes, and they were safe, and they had electricity and water and plumbing, and it worked. I'd like to see the same thing happen here, right? Again, it's just rolling up your sleeves, putting your heads together, and working hard to solve those problems.
On that topic of permitting, we know that one of the cries of the residents of this community has been the process to get permits approved, and just going through that process has become quite cumbersome and time-consuming, with some waiting months to get any sort of response back from the department. What are your thoughts on just the overall permitting process and getting things expedited quicker to help the construction industry become a vital part of the economy here locally, but also just to streamline that process, which many residents have faced troubles with over the past.
You know, I've always said that a good director is like a good coach, right? How do you get your players, your employees to excel and do more and just do the best that they possibly can, right? It's a combination of tough love and actually nurturing and reassuring people and letting their employees who've been doing the same thing over and over for years, let them know that if you have these permits sitting on your desk for weeks or months or sometimes years, that's translates to kids not getting food in their belly because their parents are out of work, right? Or they don't have pencils for school because that permit wasn't granted. You know, putting it in terms of how people can understand. Dino Chita is the new planning and permitting director designee. I intend to meet with him next week. You know, he used to be part of the building and trades, and when I interviewed with him during the campaign, and he always would say, "Hey, what are you going to do about permitting and planning?" And actually, I've introduced half a dozen of bills to try to solve some of the problems. But you know, he's got a unique opportunity now, right? The ball is in his court, and I believe that even though he's somewhat controversial amongst the environmentalists, you know, the mayor won the election, and he should be allowed to pick his team. And I look forward to working with him to solve some of these problems.
One of the things that was quite controversial last time were some of the projects that the mayor had pursued. One of them, of course, at Waimanalo, the whole Sherwood project. Where does that stand right now, and what are your thoughts on that?
I believe the Sherwood project is put on hold. You know, I used to represent Waimanalo. And part of what we as government have to do, and government officials, we need to listen to the local people, listen to the people who actually live there, work and play there. Same thing happened in my district, Ala Moana Beach Park. You may recall, I was a fierce advocate for the people. Whenever you see retirees wearing the red shirt and out there with the tea leaves, something's up. You got to go and listen to them. Remember in Ala Moana, right? We didn't want a dog park. We didn't want a world-class cement playground there, and we didn't want parking to be altered or the promenade to be altered. And local people came out, and the council actually listened to them. So same thing here going forward, I think, and that's what I tasked the new design and construction director to do. I said, please, you must listen to people, right? Because people have good ideas, and that's our job. You know, I was joking around with my staff that I wanted to make the design and construction director an elected position, so he has to listen to the people. Of course, it's not going to happen, but that's so important, right? When the people of Waimanalo came out and said, well, you know, think again about what you're doing. Lots of EV, you know, in that area, lots of bones in that area. Hawaiians buried folks in sand, and that's what that area was. And at this point, I guess to answer your question directly, that project's on hold.
You know, another thing that you were vocal about during the extent of the pandemic, when we were sort of in our height and reopening, was that second testing option. We know that you were an advocate for that, and that you had gone out and said that that is something that should happen for those who are returning to the island or visitors coming into the island of Oahu. What are your thoughts now on where we stand in terms of the opening of Hawaii to visitors who are coming in onto the island? And do you still believe that a second test is necessary for some of these visitors?
Great question, and thank you for asking that. You're right. I was a fierce advocate for a second test, right? When you look at the science and how this disease progresses, I thought a second test was absolutely necessary. However, I have to say, you know, I was wrong, because so far so good with the one test before you travel. You know, thank God I am wrong on that one, because I was really worried about our local people who are gonna be getting sick from visitors coming in here. I do drive through Waikiki every day on my way home to Kaimuki from Honolulu Hale, and I see people still in Waikiki not wearing masks, and that's troublesome. But you know, the numbers have been pretty good, so you know, I'm thankful that I was wrong. I do want to say though, I really believe that if we make testing as convenient as possible, as free as possible, we would do it. Our hotel workers, if we had a site in Waikiki where they could go and get tested twice a week, and then utilizing our phones with the tracing app, I think that would be safe. I'm so happy that there's a vaccine out there, and as soon as I'm able to get one, I intend to, and I want to encourage others out there to also take it. Vaccines, you don't need to be afraid. It'll be fine. But again, sorry, I talk a lot. That's my job, I think, sometimes. But I still agree. I think there should be 2 tests, but so far it's working with one.
One of the things that the tier system has effectively shut down is team sports, especially for our young people. We know there are these initiatives to save our sports. There are some advocates for that on your own council. What's your stance on athletics overall, and where do you think, given that the tier system does restrict that, is that one of the areas that you would support loosening, or do you think it should stay as is?
I'm an avid canoe paddler, and in a canoe, you got 6 people. Because of the tier system, that's out the window. I fully intended to do Molokai Channel this year after a couple of years off with Huinalu Canoe Club, but unfortunately, the entire canoe season was shut down. The entire sports season with basketball, baseball was shut down. And I really, really know the importance of sports and how they affect our youth and how they help you grow and learn values. But at the same time, ultimately, safety has to be our utmost priority. So while I feel for all the kids, I would say we stick with the tier system unless, like I said earlier, unless we can provide testing and tracing for the coaches and the kids, which I think we can. The new tranche of money coming in from the federal government, we should buy more testing machines and make it available to our sports teams. Because if you're sick, hey, don't come to practice. But you would know if you're sick or not. With this disease, what's so insidious about it is you can be asymptomatic, right? Meaning you don't show any symptoms. You don't have a sore throat. You're not coughing, nothing. You feel fine, but you're actually sick and infectious. And the big deal for me is when the kid goes home and Honi's kisses his grandma or grandpa, guess what? If you caught it from playing basketball with your best friend and you took it home and you got your grandpa or grandpa sick and they ended up mucking and dying, right? Oh, that would be bad. So I do agree with the tier system at this point, unless we are able to test and trace, which I believe we are, if we just put some resources and money to that.
Earlier this week, we also heard from another industry that has been impacted by COVID-19, and that's the Bar Association and bar owners here. We know that they are included in Tier 4 and have essentially been, banned from reopening because of this tier system, and many of whom continue to struggle, some saying they won't be able to hang on for much longer with their doors closed. What are your thoughts on supporting the bar industry, and do you believe that they should remain closed during this time under the current tier system?
Well, I lump in the bars with the restaurant industry, and we absolutely have to support our restaurant industry. I mean, they're providing jobs as well, right? And sometimes good paying jobs when you get tips. But again, you got to come back to safety, right? That's utmost consideration. And if you could, through personal protective equipment and barriers, like I'm seeing in the restaurants all over the island, where you have barriers between tables and the waiters and waitresses are wearing gloves and appropriate masks, I think we can find a solution. But when you're talking about just a bar, it makes it really, really difficult. At this point, we're still encouraging people to stay home and be safe, but that's a really tough one. And again, you got to fall back on science and safety. And I apologize to the bars for not being able to reopen.
One of the things that a lot of people do with City Council, of course, is come down there in person and submit testimony. I know you folks have been largely online, but for people who do want to participate, because now the stakes are higher than ever, how do you advise they do that, and what are sort of the mechanisms to take part in government this time around?
Great question. You know, my very first day, when I was sworn in, we had a hearing that went till 11 o'clock at night. I was sworn in at 10 o'clock. It went, to 11 o'clock at night. And people came down in droves to testify. And it was really sad when we had to close down Honolulu Hale and people could not testify. But I got to give credit to our clerks. My committee, the Economic Revitalization Committee, was the first committee actually to accept testimony through Zoom and WebEx and through the phone. And this was back in March of last year. And it actually worked pretty good. And the feedback that we were getting is that people don't have to get in their car, drive to the downtown, find parking, pay for parking, walk into the hale, wait for sometimes hours before they could testify. In the meantime, worried about plugging their meter with coins. So the feedback has been really, really good. People have enjoyed it. And it's super easy. You just log on to our website at honolulu.gov, and it's very intuitive. Although I do intend to try to improve that. But your testimony, folks out there watching, is vitally important, right? That's what we count on, and that's what democracy is about. You have to participate, and we're trying to make that as easy as possible. Written testimony is super easy, right, to do, and it's very intuitive on our website, and I encourage people to do that too. At this point, for safety reasons, the hale, we're still not accepting in-person testimony, and I apologize for that. And I intend to open it up as soon as it's safe to do so. But at this point, you have to testify virtually or in writing. And it's on our website at honolulu.gov.
Our time's wrapping up here, but I did want to provide an opportunity for you to just provide any closing statements or remarks that you want to make about your thoughts heading into this new makeup of the council, this new administration, the number of challenges that are presented in front of you because of COVID-19 and the impact it is having on the city's budget. Your final thoughts as you head on into this next important chapter of the city council.
Well, again, thank you both for having me on. I think it's vitally important for us to be communicating with our constituents, and I'm encouraging, and I'm going to start walking door to door once I'm able to do so through this pandemic. And I'm encouraging my fellow council members to do that as well. Communication is key. Feel free to contact us at the council, and I'm going to start doing more newsletters and email blasts so we can get the word out. But there's a couple of issues that are still very, very important, like developing. We want to develop the urban core, but do we really want to put hotels on Kapiolani Boulevard, which is in my district? That's something that I'm interested to find out what our community thinks about. Rail is still here. We want to try to get it to Ala Moana, but how are we going to do that? How are we going to afford that? One of the things I'm looking at is trying to get the developers. We're going to build luxury apartments around the rail system to help us pay for the rail station, or perhaps a mile in either direction. Because one of the things I'm finding out that, especially these luxury apartments, they're making a lot of money. And rather than taking that money and taking it offshore, keep it back here in Hawaii and help us help you, right? That's what it comes down to. And again, just treat each other with aloha. Again, aloha every day to everybody, all your might, and you cannot go wrong. That to me is something that we all should live by, and I'm asking our council members to do the same thing. And be safe out there, everyone.
Okay, thank you so much. The new chair of the Honolulu City Council, Tommy Waters, joining us here today. Aloha, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Aloha to both of you.
Well, Ryan, interesting to hear from him there about the priorities. They are facing $400 million in deficits. So how do they make that up? He says he doesn't want to raise taxes. So what else can they look at? We don't know specifically what that's going to look like. Calvin Say, of course, is heading up the budget committee. And so we hope to have him on in the coming months to find out how he plans to tackle that.
Yeah, a big deficit. And, we're seeing that and hearing that from lawmakers in each of the branches, right? We heard about the deficit at the state level, of course, the impact on the city and county, and looking for ways to fill that gap without putting further burden on taxpayers, looking for ways to keep those vacant positions not filled, to save on some of the overall salary costs is something that he spoke about, and looking for other mechanisms that may assist in this effort. We covered a wide variety of topics, but I think seems very optimistic and hopeful with the new makeup of the council. We know that in the past, this city council has had some very contentious relationships on the council, with many arguing back and forth. There's jockeying for positionings that has happened in the past, leadership opportunities where that often got in the way of getting things done. This time around, the council chair saying that he is very optimistic about the personalities and the team that they have made up. Of course, as he said, 5 women now making up the majority of the council as well. And so he's excited and he's optimistic that this will be a new look for the city council.
Yeah, and really a clean slate too with a new mayor. So that relationship gets a fresh start as well. So we'll be interested to hear. We actually have Mayor Blangiardi coming on here next week, so we'll be talking to him as well. Also interesting that while he does not necessarily love the restrictions of the tier system, it does sound like he largely supports the existing infrastructure and doesn't necessarily want to change the rules when it comes to team sports or reopening bars, but saying that testing really would be key to making any alterations to that plan.
Yeah, and that is a drum that he has been beating for some time now. We're asking for more testing. And so we'll see what happens with the new mayor and with the governor if they decide that, as funds continue to come through the second wave of CARES Act funding, if any of that will go to further testing. We will be speaking to the governor next week, so we'll be getting an update from him. We know that also there are many questions in here about unemployment, and that is a state issue. So it's not something that is handled here on the city level with the council. So we'll be talking to the governor about an update with the unemployment. We know that as we spoke to the director a few weeks back, that they said that it may be a few weeks before they are able to get that plus up money, that $300 extra a week into the hands of those residents here in Hawaii. And a lot of that largely attributed to the mainframe and the weak system of the infrastructure that they use to get that funds out. So we'll try to get an update from the governor for all of you asking those unemployment. And we'll also be speaking to the director again next month for another update, as we know many of you have some unemployment questions.
Yeah, and a waiting game for the money, also a waiting game for the vaccine. We've seen articles over the last few days in the paper about unexpected shortages, Hawaii not getting as many shipments of vaccine doses as was planned, people having to cancel appointments. So we are going to be talking to the person who is heading up that effort. That, of course, is Lieutenant Governor Josh Green. He's joining us here on Monday. Join us then at 10:30. We're going to be talking all about the vaccine rollout, what you can expect. We know so many folks are eager to get that shot in the arm. So when is it coming? We'll be talking to him on Monday.
That's right, a full week next week. So we wish you all a safe weekend. We'll see you right back here on Monday at 10:30. Aloha.
Aloha.